Rodrigo Borgia and the Vatican in his time. Rodrigo Borgia, who would become Pope Alexander VI, was one of the most controversial figures in the history of the papacy. His life unfolded at the end of the 15th century, during the turbulent years of the Italian Renaissance, when Rome was not only the spiritual heart of Europe, but also a center of intrigue, corruption, wealth, and power struggles. To understand his story is to walk through a labyrinth of ambition, family politics, and the shadows of the Vatican itself. Life and rise to power. Rodrigo was born in 1431 in Jatava, near Valencia in Spain, into the powerful Borgia family. His uncle, Alfonso de Borgia, rose to the papacy as Pope Calixtus III. Through his uncle's influence, Rodrigo was brought to Rome as a young man and soon began his climb through the ranks of the church. His intelligence, charm, and ability to manage finances secured him important positions. At the age of just 25, he was made a cardinal, and soon after, vice-chancellor of the church. Although he outwardly followed the path of a churchman, Rodrigo never gave up worldly pleasures. He lived as both a prince and a cleric, acquiring wealth, estates, and influence. What truly distinguished him was not piety, but ambition, and a gift for understanding the mechanics of power. He was patient, strategic, and willing to wait for opportunities. The decisive moment in Rodrigo's career came in 1492, with the death of Pope Innocent VIII. The College of Cardinals gathered in the Sistine Chapel to elect his successor. These conclaves were often less about spirituality than about politics, and Rodrigo knew how to play the game better than most. He offered money, lands, and positions to the cardinals whose votes he needed. Some were given lucrative benefices, others were promised political alliances or new offices. This open corruption was hardly unique to Rodrigo, but he practiced it with particular efficiency. In August 1492, the white smoke signaled his victory. Rodrigo Borgia was now Pope Alexander VI's rule. As Pope Alexander VI did not hide his nature, he turned the Vatican into the seat of a dynasty, not only a spiritual authority. His children, though officially illegitimate, were openly acknowledged and used as instruments of policy. Cesare Borgia, his most famous son, first became a cardinal at his father's insistence, but always longed for military power. Lucrezia Borgia, Rodrigo's daughter, was celebrated for her beauty and intelligence, and was married multiple times to strengthen alliances. His other children, Giovanni and Geoffrey, were likewise positioned to advance the family's fortunes. The Vatican under Alexander VI became notorious for its extravagance. Banquets, music, dances, and spectacles filled the papal palace. Rome was flooded with courtesans, soldiers, envoys, and artists. For many observers, the head of Christendom had turned the church into a courtly stage where politics and pleasure outweighed faith. Intrigue and opposition. His reign, Alexander's, was marked by constant intrigue. Rome itself was divided between powerful families like the Orsini and the Colonna, who were traditional enemies of the Borgias. Beyond Rome, the great powers of Europe, France, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire, watched closely, each seeking to use or resist the Pope's influence. One of Alexander's main strategies was the use of his daughter Lucrezia in marriage negotiations. Her unions were arranged and broken whenever political advantage demanded it. To some, she became a tragic figure, a woman treated as a pawn by her father. To others, she was a skilled political player in her own right, learning to survive in a world of constant betrayal. Cesare, meanwhile, became his father's sword. Abandoning the church, he took command of armies and sought to carve out a principality in central Italy. With papal resources behind him, he waged wars, seized lands, and forced cities into submission. His ambition was boundless, and Alexander encouraged it as long as it served the family's rise. Yet beneath the feasting and spectacle lay ruthless politics. Alexander used marriage, money, and the threat of excommunication to strengthen his grip. He placed loyalists in positions of power and sought to secure territories in Italy for his children. At the same time, he lived under constant threat. Assassination plots, conspiracies, and whispers of poison haunted the papal household. Rome was filled with spies and mercenaries. Enemies accused the Borgias of using poison themselves to eliminate rivals and seize property. True or not, the image of the Borgias as masters of secret murder became part of their legend. When told of conspiracies against him, Alexander is said to have responded coldly, that God would judge his enemies, and if God delayed, then the Borgias would judge in his place. The end came suddenly in 1503. By then Cesare was at the height of his campaigns, and Alexander was still plotting new conquests. During a meal shared between father and son, both fell gravely ill. According to one account, the Borgias had prepared poisoned wine for a guest, but the wrong cups were taken, and the poison struck them instead. Whether this story is fact or legend, Rodrigo's condition deteriorated rapidly. His body swelled, his skin blackened, and fever consumed him. After days of agony, Pope Alexander VI died on August 18, 1503. His death left the Vatican in chaos. Cesare, though still alive, was weakened and soon lost his power as the political tides turned against the Borgias. Without Rodrigo at the papal throne, the dynasty crumbled. Borgia's papacy remains one of the most infamous in history. To his enemies, he embodied corruption, greed, and immorality at the heart of the church. He turned the papacy into a family enterprise, used holy offices as bargaining chips, and pursued worldly power with relentless energy. Yet others have seen him as a man of his age, a Renaissance ruler who played the game of politics as ruthlessly as any prince or king. He was shrewd, capable, and unafraid to use every tool available to maintain authority. His children carried forward his legacy. Cesare inspired Niccolò Machiavelli's The Prince, serving as the model of the cunning and ruthless leader. Lucrezia became both a symbol of corruption and later a figure of sympathy. Above all, Rodrigo Borgia left a name that has never faded. The Vatican may have moved on, but the stories of Alexander VI continue to echo. Stories of feasts, poisons, power, and a family that sought to rule not only Rome, but all of Italy.